The first drops of summer rain fell just as Leela reached the edge of the old stone bridge. The town's festival had just ended and glowing lanterns swayed gently above the river, their lights mirrored on the water's dark surface. She had hoped to catch him before he left, Ethan, her childhood friend. The one who left town 5 years ago chasing dreams, and returned now just for a visit, he said. But Leela knew, deep down, that this was goodbye again unless she did something bold. She found him standing on the bridge, hands tucked in his jacket pockets, eyes fixed on the lanterns drifting downstream. He didn't notice her at first, or maybe he was just pretending. "I thought you'd be gone by now," she said softly. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes before it melted into a familiar smile. "I was waiting." "For what?" "You." The rain thickened, warm and steady, soaking through her hair, darkening his shirt. Still, neither moved. "I didn't want to say goodbye like this again," she whispered. "Then don't." She stepped closer, breath caught in her throat. "You once told me you'd come back if I ever asked you to." "I remember." "Well," her voice shook slightly. "I'm asking." There was a beat of silence, just rain and heartbeats. And then he stepped into her arms and kissed her. It wasn't the kind of kiss rushed by urgency or shaped by desperation. It was slow, full, and aching with years of words left unsaid. Rain slid down their faces, but neither cared. His hands cradled her face, her fingers tangled in his damp hair, and time, just for a moment, stood still on that bridge. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. She smiled, lips still tingling. "Good." And under the rain, under the soft glow of drifting lanterns, Leela kissed him again, this time with the certainty of love that had waited patiently, and now, finally, had come home. The air hung heavy with the scent of wet stone and blooming wisteria as Leela walked along the river bank. Beside her, Ethan matched her pace easily, his presence a comforting weight beside her. Gone was the hesitant boy from 5 years ago, replaced by a man whose quiet confidence made her heart skip a beat. They strolled past the old oak tree where they used to share secrets, its leaves rustling like hushed whispers, and Leela couldn't help but smile. This walk always brought back such vivid memories, memories she thought were lost, buried beneath the ache of his absence. They stopped at a clearing where wildflowers carpeted the ground in a riot of colors. Leela's gaze drifted to a patch of bluebells nodding in the breeze. "Do you remember?" she began, her voice catching slightly. "The day you left. You picked those for me." A ghost of a smile touched Ethan's lips. "How could I forget? You were furious. Said I was a sap for leaving without saying goodbye properly. Well, I thought you were just running away again, like you always did when things got tough." She turned to him, her eyes searching his. "But it's different this time, isn't it? You're not coming back." The carefree lilt in her voice couldn't quite mask the tremor in her chest. Ethan stopped walking and gently took her hand in his. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through her, and she leaned into his warmth, even though she knew better than to get comfortable. He was just here for a fleeting moment, a moment that would soon turn into goodbye again. "What makes you think that?" His thumb brushed lightly against her skin, and Leela wished, with a fierce intensity, that he would stay, that he wouldn't leave. But she couldn't let herself hope. "Not again." "Because you've always been good at running away," she whispered, her voice tight. "I thought you were just doing that again." The accusation hung between them, and Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. "Leela," he started, his voice rough. Then he sighed and looked away, the haunted look in his eyes momentarily shattering the carefree facade he'd presented earlier. "It's not that simple. Things didn't work out how I expected." His words tumbled out, rushed and strained. Leela knew better than to press him. She'd seen that guarded look in his eyes before. It was a fortress, keeping the world, including her, at bay. Still, she couldn't help but ask, "Are you happy?" The question hung in the air, fragile and hopeful. For a moment, there was only the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. Then Ethan turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "More than anything," he said quietly, "I thought you deserved more than this small town. Leela, I wanted a big life for you, one that I couldn't offer. And what about you?" She whispered, her gaze boring into his. "Are you happy chasing dreams that aren't yours?" The accusation hung heavy between them, laced with the unspoken question of why he'd come back now, after all these years. A flicker of pain crossed Ethan's face, quickly replaced by his familiar confident smile. "I am who I am, Leela, and no matter where I go, I can't escape this feeling." He squeezed her hand gently, as if afraid to touch her any further. This feeling of coming home, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town. Leela and Ethan sat on a weathered bench in the town square, their shoulders touching. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle, and the distant strum of a guitar floated from an open window. It was the same melody Ethan had played for her all those years ago. A melody that spoke of dreams and goodbyes. Leela turned to him, her heart heavy with unspoken words. All those years of bottled emotions, of holding on and letting go threatened to spill over. "Why are you here, Ethan?" The question escaped as a mere whisper, yet it echoed the turmoil in her soul. Why had he come back? Was it to mend broken fences, or merely stir up feelings he had no intention of addressing? He turned to her, his eyes searching hers, and for a moment, Leela saw a vulnerability in their depths that belied his usual stoic nature. "I needed to see you," he confessed, his voice hoarse as if unused for speaking so openly. "To tell you," he hesitated, his gaze dropping to the cobblestones, "that I never stopped caring." The words tumbled out, raw and unguarded. "I came back to tell you that I never stopped loving you." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken emotions. Tears welled up in Leela's eyes, blurring Ethan's face, the town, the very world around her. Years of yearning, of hoping against hope that he, too, had felt something for her, something beyond friendship, threatened to spill over. But she blinked back the tears, afraid to break first, to give away the hard-won composure she'd built up all those years ago when he'd left. What about Sarah? The name escaped her lips before she could stop it, a betrayal of the turmoil in her heart. Ethan winced, his eyes clouding over with pain. "We broke up a year ago. She never understood me, not the way you do." He reached out, his hand hovering just above hers before dropping back down to his lap. "And I realized that running away from my feelings, from us, it didn't make them go away. It only made them stronger, more painful." His words hit home, echoing the turmoil within her. All those times she'd convinced herself that he didn't care, that he hadn't even thought of her all those years. They were just that, mere figments of her longing. He was here now, wasn't he? Back in her life, back in the place where their story began, where their love story, buried under years of unspoken words and unfulfilled glances, had finally found its way back to the surface. The sky deepened into twilight, the stars beginning to pepper the canvas above them. As the last notes of the evening's music drifted through the square, Leela felt a profound shift within her. The dam she'd built around her heart cracked, threatening to crumble. The carefully constructed walls she'd raised all those years ago to protect herself from the pain of his goodbye, they were crumbling in the face of his confession, in the face of his return. She looked at Ethan, truly looked at him, seeing the man he'd become while recognizing the boy she'd loved all those years ago. In that moment, amidst the fading light and the echoes of music, Leela knew she couldn't keep holding onto the past. The tears that had threatened to spill now flowed freely, a release of pent-up emotions, of grief and joy and a love that had endured years of silence. "Oh, Ethan," she whispered, her voice cracking. He reached out, his hand finding hers, his touch sending shivers down her spine. And in that touch, in that shared moment of vulnerability, the unspoken words, the unsaid promises, the love that had waited patiently, all found their resolution.